and start webinar. Well, hello, everybody. We are going to start a minute early just so everybody can get logged in and into the room. We have a really good turnout for this. We had over 500 people register. So we're really excited that so many of you on such short notice were able to clear your schedules and join us today to talk to our new head football coach, Coach Bielema. So we'll give you a couple more minutes to get logged in. My name is Cassie Arner. I'm in the athletics department and I will moderate the event this afternoon. So it looks like we've got about 160 in the room so far. Let me introduce David Bambry from the Alumni Association to start things off today. David?
Thanks so much, Cassie, and thanks everyone for joining us. As Cassie said, my name's Dave Bambry. I'm the Vice President for Alumni and Student Engagement at the University of Illinois Alumni Association, and we're looking forward to a great event today. I just wanted to spend a minute or two with a couple of quick announcements from the Alumni Association before we dive in. First, I wanted to just be sure to mention one of our newest initiatives. It's called Illini Link, which was launched to alumni in November and then students in December. Illini Link is the Alumni Association's networking and flash mentoring platform that is bringing together the Illinois community and allowing for both group engagement and also one-to-one engagement opportunities for people to grow their professional network, gain career advice. It also provides the opportunity for alumni to mentor students and for alumni to find a mentor themselves. We've already had thousands of alumni and students register for the platform. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, we would certainly encourage you to do so. And the website for that is alumnilink.illinois.edu. So feel free to check that out at your leisure. Second, I just wanted to bring some continued awareness and provide a quick shout out to our great alumni clubs around the country and around the world. I know that we have a number of them joining us here today. So thank you for your continued work and support. The alumni clubs are doing amazing work in engaging alumni in their local areas and within their affinity groups, especially during what is unprecedented times in the COVID era. They're doing really cool stuff in the virtual realm. And so I would just encourage you to visit the Alumni Association's club's webpage, or Google the club in your area for opportunities to become involved or to attend an event in the near future. Third, be sure to check out your email in the coming weeks, especially from the Alumni Association. We're releasing a new webinar series that will provide opportunities for continued engagement and education. We're working to finalize our list of speakers now, but we're really excited about how the schedule is coming together. And again, more information to come in the next few weeks on that, but please stay tuned. And lastly, I just wanted to thank our great colleagues and friends in the Division of Intercollegiate Athletics for providing the event this evening, specifically Cassie and her team for bringing this together. And lastly, and most importantly, thank you to Coach Bielema for being with us tonight. To be able to hear from you so early in your tenure at Illinois is truly wonderful and amazing. I can't imagine your schedule right now, so having you make time for us so early in your tenure, like I mentioned, is just greatly appreciated. And we look forward to hearing from you this evening and certainly cheering you and the team on this fall and hopefully back in Memorial Stadium this fall. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Cassie to get things going. And thank you again, Cassie, for making this possible.
Yeah, I echo those thoughts. I really hope we have fans in the stadium this year. It makes a world of difference. And while we were very thankful to have played this last year, it just was not the same without all of our Illini family. Real quick, some instructions for today. Many of you have already found the Q&A button on your screen. We'll have you ask questions one of two ways. You can type your question in the Q&A and we will get to that. Second, you can raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, I will pop you into our panelist section and you should be able to ask the question directly to Coach yourself. What I ask you not to do is put it in the chat, because the chat gets overwhelmed and I may miss your question. We do not want to do that. So we've already got some questions in the hopper, Coach. We got some very eager people to talk to you. But before we do, I'm going to let you just kind of give us a couple minutes of maybe why this job was important to you, what made you passionate about coming here to Champaign-Urbana to be our next football coach, and what has it been like the past month, few weeks?
Thank you, Cassie, and also thank you, David, for the intro. Yeah, it's been a pretty awesome couple of weeks. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I was filling out some paperwork the other day, and I realized my initial start date. So we're approaching in or honing in on a month. It's been a whirlwind. This has been a job that's been very attractive to me. Really, since I got out of college football in the last 3 years being in the NFL, I've always kept an eye on potential situations and potential opportunities. And this is one because of my home state, because of being in this division. There were a lot of positives to it. And then kind of got my temptations up last year. I know it doesn't sound right, because for me to have transition to be able to come here, that means that Illinois had to have some struggles for transition to occur. So even a year ago, I began to look at it, didn't know what opportunities may come. And then obviously this year, as it played out, we were playing a home game at the Giants, and I got out of a game and had like 30 messages. And I always get nervous when my phone's blown up because I'm worried about my girls. And I quickly realized after reading a couple of them that people were informing me that the Illinois job had come open. And really, I just sat back and prayed and hoped that Josh would reach out to me. And then when that moment came, it's really been a whirlwind since then. We hit it off pretty good and talked to several people on his staff and really just moved really quickly to get to where we were. I was hoping to finish out the season with the Giants, but because of COVID and the protocols and everything that kind of took place there, once you remove yourself from the NFL building, you can't be back into it. I actually started to formulate plans of being able to work out of an office there and be able to coach the games on Sundays. But once it was all kind of laid out in front of me, I knew the only option was to come here and jump into it full go. And I'm glad we have, because it's really been awesome. We pieced together a staff. I've hired 8 of my 10 full-time coaches that are here in the building working. And then I got 2 more to go. I'm going to hire 1 offensive coach and 1 defensive coach yet, have the guys in place that I want to talk to there, but we haven't been able to get everything worked out to make it official. So still working through a little bit of that. Our players are actually coming this Sunday. We have our first round of testing starting at 11 a.m. Because of the COVID world we're in right now, they actually have to go through testing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, they'll get cleared, and then they're going to jump into a 3-day window where we're going to actually body scan every player in our program, offense, defense, special teams. First year, first day. Last year guys, 5th year guys that are coming back for their 6th year. We've got a wide range this year that compared to any other time in college football history, to be quite honest. So they're going to actually go through a 3-day body composition exam where we can't work them physically until the 25th, but we can put them through a variety of tests. And a lot of times what I've witnessed over the last 12 years, certain guys have developed their body in ways that put it out of balance and put them at risk of injury, overtraining in the lower body, or if they've had an injury, they overtrain one side versus the other. And it really never becomes an issue till it's an issue because they have an injury or something that could have easily been prevented. So we'll get a good idea of where they are physically, and then we'll jump into an 8-week training program that'll basically be every Monday, Tuesday. We'll give them a Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then give them Sunday off. By NCAA rules, in a 7-day window, you can only work with them 5 days out of the week. So we'll break it up that way. We'll work a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. Then we'll go Thursday, Friday, and early Saturday morning. Just what every college student athlete wants is to get up early on a Saturday morning and spend their morning with coaches. So we'll do that really to encourage behavior on Friday night, but also give us the maximum opportunity to recover on Saturday and Sunday. After that 8-week training cycle is done, and we'll go into a 5-week spring ball where we're going to practice on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We'll actually have mental training on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then during that 5-week window, we got to have them 1 day off, so they'll have off on Sundays. So got a busy 13 weeks in front of us, but one I'm excited about to go down this road together. And then, speaking of different groups, and Cassie's been with me on a couple of these calls, I've kind of just reiterated, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us here in the football building. It's going to take everybody in the athletic department. It's going to take everybody on campus. It's going to take everybody that touches the Alumni family, either a former alum or a fan or whatever it is, to get this place where we need it to be. Josh has continually harped that the main message that we both kind of said early on was not just to have success, but to have sustained success, to be able to, hey, this is something we want to build for a long time. I'm the father, a very proud father of a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old that it would do my heart good to see them grow up and call Champaign their hometown for a long, long time. Hopefully go to school here. So it's something that means a lot to me. I think perspective changes everybody, and to be in this conference as first a player, then as an assistant coach, to come back into it as a coordinator, then be the head coach of another program in this same division for a long time, to step away from it and observe what's going on, and now to come back into it, I couldn't be more excited. So with that, I'll open it up. I see we got a lot of Q&A.
A lot of questions. Yep. We're going to give you an easy one to start off with, though.
All right.
DJ says he heard you love to fish, great fisherman. Wondering, what is your white whale of this Illinois program?
You know, I guess I don't know the meaning of a white whale. White whales is like what?
Thing you may have a hard time capturing.
Oh, white whale.
Maybe biggest challenge.
Chalk that one up. I got to get these terminology done. First off, I'm not a real good fisherman. I love to fish, but I'm not anchoring. I'm not exactly making it great yet. I grew up on a little town in Illinois where we had a creek that ran through my farmland where we're at, and we used to catch catfish and bullheads down there. And then I kind of gravitated to my father had a little, my grandfather had a little area we used to get some bluegills. And then as I got older in life, I became a huge fan of deep sea fishing. So that's kind of my fishing wheelhouse. As far as the white whale, it's going to be hard to capture in the Illinois program. I think the first thing we have to capture is the players, the student athletes. You know, it's always hard during transition because I didn't recruit them. So, you know, I just try to build relationships, and every relationship is different. You got kids that have had great success here who are looking to see what you can do more of. You got kids that maybe haven't had success. They want to find out what they can do to achieve more. And then you have kids that maybe just are going to naturally resist. You know, every player has been raised in a different environment. Every player has got a different perspective on life. Some kids naturally trust, others naturally distrust. So to figure out these 110 guys is going to be priority number one, and really to have a staff, you know, a group of coaches that can kind of come in and gain, just because they put, you know, the right coach on your shirt or they put you in the coach's locker room, doesn't necessarily make you their coach. They got to believe in you. They got to understand what you're all about and really try to make them grow together as our group of coaches and me as a head coach to get where we want to be.
Makes sense. All right. So what are your goals for the walk-on program? You were a walk-on yourself. You have great passion for kids like that, especially maybe local athletes.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was having some initial conversations with Josh. I was always curious, really, in all the years that I'd recruited against Illinois, it was kind of amazing to me that there really wasn't an established walk-on program. If you look around the area here and our direct competitors, you know, Iowa, the reason that I went to the University of Iowa is because they had a walk-on program that had been pretty successful. And that's really the reason that I went there. So that, and then you couple that with Nebraska. Nebraska probably has one of the most historic walk-on programs in the history of college football. And that was later continued when Barry Alvarez, who had been at Nebraska as a player, took it to Wisconsin. And that's when he kind of did the same thing that Iowa had been doing. And then when I joined the program here, the first thing you look at is tuition, right? And obviously to get into school here is its own separate, unique issue just to get through the academic progress, but then also to get the numbers that you need to have it. We used to think that it took 5 to 6 possible walk-ons to have that one that had the true ability to play for you. And to get that number, you just need the numbers in your program to get there. So we've actually kind of started doing that already, but it's an area in the area of the program I really want to grow because, you know, just sometimes those kids aren't big enough, strong enough, fast enough, or maybe they aren't at the level that they need to be to get a scholarship initially out of high school, but maybe they can be in 2 to 3 years. We call those guys, we call them erasers, right? So they're guys that erase recruiting mistakes. Maybe that highly touted kid that had a 3 or 4 star, 5-star ranking, he just really isn't quite as good as they thought he was going to be. So maybe you have a walk-on who had no stars, but 3 years later, he's a pretty darn good football player. So it's an area of the program we really, truly want to beef up a little bit.
I know you've been meeting with the seniors or did pretty quickly when you got here. What was your pitch to them to have them come back for another year?
Well, seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, it's really kind of all the same. But the fifth year seniors were so unique because, they have the chance to move on to the NFL. They have the chance to obviously go out into everyday life, or they just have the chance to come back. So I opened up my arms to every one of them. I really didn't, differentiate between a guy that was a multi-year starter or a multi-year all conference player. We just opened up the doors to all of them and said, if you want to be a part of this, I would love to have you. And really kind of just made basically the same blanket statement that I made to the whole room. Listen, I can't control what's been done in the past. All I can do is control what's going to happen in the future. And we're going to do some things differently. We're going to do a lot of the same things, maybe similar, all right, but in a different language. We're going to try to get ourselves in a position to get better every day and hopefully keep stacking those days together. And in the end, you get a chance to be pretty special. Regardless, I think these guys just wanted to have a feeling that we cared about them. We saw them in a life that was just more than football, and we tried to kind of open our arms up and put our arms around them as best we can. And the reaction has been very, very positive. It's kind of weird, you guys, as you all know, everybody's affected differently by COVID. They can't just walk in the door and come up to my office. They have to go through a process to just actually get in the building, and that's very frustrating, but it's also a necessity. And I shared with our guys the other day, listen, as we fight this COVID world, we all have to play by the rules. We may not like them. We may not like the situation that we're dealing, but we all have to play by the rules, because I don't want to get sick. I don't want to have someone on our staff or within our program miss, 10 days, let alone if anything, heaven forbid, physically would happen from the disease. But how we handle this little time and place for us right now is a great indication of what we can be. If we can be disciplined about who we're around, what we do, choices that we make away from the stadium or away from the football office, it usually can give you an indication of what you'll do on the football field. So it's a different world we're living in right now, but one that's very, hopefully we can challenge.
We're going to go to our first hand-raised question. Steve, you can unmute yourself and turn your camera on, which you just did, and ask Coach directly a question.
Hey, Coach, I want to just bust your chops in a kind of a fun way. I graduated from Morrison High School. I'm a Mustang, and I'm wondering if did the Profits ever beat Morrison in your day? I graduated in 1980, so I'm a little ahead of you. So
I guess.
Just wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, I think we beat them in football. I can't remember. I definitely beat them in wrestling. And then my mom ran a daycare center on the corner in Morrison. She ran a daycare center like where Hardee's is, right over across the street, patty corner. There's a little, and she ran a daycare center in the bottom of that church for almost 20 years. So I spent a lot of time in Morrison. And my dad's side, my grandpa and grandma Bielema lived right by the railroad tracks, right on 78 there.
Your mom worked with mine at the Presbyterian Church. But
Oh,
Barbara,
wow, yeah.
Yeah, she knows Barbara Vandermeide. I mean, she's passed.
I know the Vandermeide name, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was my mom. Anyway, welcome, congratulations, thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. We have a couple questions here about uniforms, wanting to know if we'll see any changes to uniforms, any updates.
It's a great question. And what the outside world probably doesn't realize is we actually, even I learned this from my previous experience at other schools, the uniforms are actually decided almost 2 years out in advance. So you really, even if I want to do some of the uniform, which I'm not saying I want to, it takes a couple years with Nike to actually even formulate the process to get them changed or altered. A number of years ago, they had basically the rebranding here on campus at the University of Illinois with Nike, where they developed the alternate logo with the eye with the tracks underneath it. It's you see kind of out there in the community a little bit, but I know there's nothing cleaner to me than that block eye. I love that block eye. And I think we might incorporate something with that on our pants. We know our pants are naked right now. They just got the normal look. So to put that block eye somewhere might have some merit, but for the most part, I'm kind of a traditionalist. I'm a purist. Not that we're going to try to be Penn State or any of that lines, but I definitely remember early in my career as a young coach, I listened to Joe Paterno give a talk at the National Coaches Convention. And he said, you know what? Everybody doesn't like our uniforms. Nobody likes our uniforms. But he said, but everybody knows who we are. And I'm like, it made a statement to me. If we just keep constantly changing uniforms and moving and revolving, we don't ever have an identity, because that's really, truly one of the greatest ways that someone can identify to the University of Illinois is that block I, and I want to have a person walk down the streets of Champaign and tip their hat and say ILL, and somebody give an I and I, but I want that same thing to happen when they're in New York City, Miami, Florida, Dallas, Texas, San Francisco, California, Seattle, Washington. What I want to do is build that brand so that we can, across the country, know what it means and understand where it's at.
Look at Coach helping me with my marketing and branding. Perfect. All right, a couple recruiting questions. First, what are your primary recruiting goals for year one? How do you achieve them? And what areas of the country do you look at for speed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first off, recruiting priority number one for us is the state of Illinois, right? So it's whether it's 2021, 2022, talked to a 2023 prospect earlier today. If you're in the state of Illinois and your border is surrounded our great state, we want you, if you can help us win a Big Ten championship, we want you in our program. So that's priority number one. And I started day one with that, reaching out to high school coaches, some of the best coaches in the state. Because of the timing of my hire, we actually had a signing date on that Wednesday when I was hired on Saturday. So I couldn't really get in on the 2021 class, but I've said this a couple times. If you just think about Illinois in particular, over the course of time, they're going to sign somewhere between 30 to 35 Division I athletes that play the game of football at a championship level every year. 25 being a low year, 35 being a high year. So you can bank around that 30 number. If we can just get half, all right, anything over that would be bonus. But if you could get half of the players that leave our state normally to go play somewhere else and help them win other championships, if we can just get them to stay at home, we got a great start on a championship. So that's been our biggest priority. Right now, for me, we have the class of 2021, and that incorporates three different things: high school athletes, senior grad transfers, and because of this COVID world, a one-time transfer aspect. So there's some different things in the frying pan right now. So we got a lot of moving parts. I've really tried to kind of balance out what we want to try to do for our roster right now compared to where we want to be in 2 to 3 years. But I've told these guys, literally, I'm not trying to win 3 years from now. All right. If we put a product on the field next year to win, that's what we want to do. And I'm not going to try to skip any steps to get there. But on the same account, I'm not just thinking long term. I'm trying to get success up front, which should actually help us recruit in 2022 even better.
Probably a good follow-up to that is, there are some people believe some coaches, high school coaches in state, that are only looking at the Michigans, Ohio States, Notre Dames. How do you break into that group and show them that Illinois is just as viable a place for their kids as those others?
Cassie, it's really it's very apparent to me when I hired my coaches. Listen, you're only going to go where you expect to go. And if we think that we're hiring or we're going to bring in a group of coaches that are only seeing Illinois as a certain level within the big, then we're the wrong guy. So that's not going to be the case with us. We'll attack anybody and everybody. Obviously in our own division, to set the tone within that division and who we got to play, and the Michigan and Penn State, Ohio State, who are on the other side. We're not going to back down from anybody. We're going to go after what we do. We're going to approach them in the way that Illinois approaches you. We're going to go after a certain type of player. Everybody thinks that, you can only recruit speed from the South, but there's a lot of fast kids in Illinois. There's fast kids anywhere around us. So we'll go anywhere we can go to bring someone to the orange and blue. And if it's in state, that's great. But if we have to step outside, I'm kind of intrigued to get into the Ohio. I don't know if they've really maxed into that as of late. So I think Ohio's a huge priority for us. I think you can go up into Minneapolis, take a swing at a couple guys up there. I naturally recruit the state of Florida. I've recruited the state of Florida since I've been a young buck. Signed over 150 guys from that state in my career. So it's something I know very well. We'll go after an Illinois kid in Florida, right? So by that, I mean, obviously you're going to have a certain type of student athlete down there in certain areas that maybe it doesn't a great fit for us here at Illinois, but a lot of them are, and we got to find those guys. We got to find an Illinois student athlete in Florida, and the same thing like Dallas. We have direct flights into Charlotte. We'll have any place that has a direct flight to here in Champaign or Peoria. That is a big, or Bloomington is a really big thing for us in the recruiting process.
This question is from Mark Jackson. I'm going to assume it's our former athlete, Mark Jackson. Sounds like a question he would ask, but he says, Coach, do you anticipate Coach Walters bringing the same 4-2-5 defense that he did at Missouri or do you envision something different? Also, with quite a few graduating or losses on the defensive side, what do you see the strength for next year?
Yeah, great question. One of the great things about this job, the opportunity came when I began to hear from people that I really, didn't have an idea were going to reach out. And when this job came open, obviously when I took it, there were several active defensive coordinators, not only in the SEC, but in the Big Ten and across this country that expressed interest. And that's why I kind of took my time. I did some recon, was able to interview guys, and Coach Ryan Walters has been a shooting star. He's early on in his career. I think he's only 32 years of age, right? But he's a guy that has great knowledge. He actually, I was talking to an SEC coach about last week, and the first thing he said, he was very thankful for me to get him out of the SEC because he had been a hard prep for them individually. So I think Coach has got a lot of talent. We have lost some guys, obviously Jake, linebacker left, a couple of DBs, but we do have a lot of really good returning players. Been kind of impressed with some of the film I've watched on them. I like the mentality that a couple of them have demonstrated when we've talked a little bit. So I'm excited, but it was when Ryan and I were talking, I didn't want him to just come in and, hey, put down the Missouri playbook and that's what we're going to run. We're going to build the Illini playbook. I've been around defensive football, been around some good coaches with Belichick and what we did with the Giants, as well as some of my defensive schemes from the past. I have a couple of defensive coaches that played for me, Aaron Henry and Terrence Jamison. Both are guys that I recruited from their living room to now are in our coaching room. So I know those guys well. Andy Boo, we were only together 1 year at Wisconsin, but it was a Big Ten championship. He's been a coordinator at Maryland, Rutgers, Nevada, Stanford. He's really been all over the place and recruited or was a coordinator. So we'll kind of blend all that into hopefully one great product here.
All right, we're going to go to our second in-person question. Paul, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself and ask your question to Coach. Paul, do you know if it's you? If not, we'll move on to the next question. Back on recruiting, how much has it changed since you were a player at Iowa?
How much has recruiting changed?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't really recruited. I was asked to walk on. I wasn't good enough to get a scholarship offer, but I would say from 1992, which is really when I took over as an assistant coach. 93, I was a GA for a year and a half. The world has changed so much. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with this, right? With the cell phone and the technology that's in the palm of your hands. I've been Zooming here nonstop for about 2.5 weeks. It's really, again, when Josh and I were talking, everybody said that this COVID thing was going to be a huge disadvantage. It's a huge advantage if you look at it the right way. So we knew that we weren't going to be on the road recruiting, which normally is what you'd be doing right now. So you would try to bring student athletes to campus, but on the same account, we'd be out trying to recruit as much as we can for next year's class. So the only thing we've had is the Zoom and really technology on the cell phone. So it's been a huge advantage for me. I've been doing a lot of Zooms, get a mom and dad in the room, or even just a prospect and have a conversation for about 30, 45 minutes. Some of them go on an hour or longer. You start getting engaged, you start having some communication. You could have a parent at work or a parent at a school and a young man at a training facility, and you can bring everybody together on one screen. It's really been a pretty efficient way to get this ball rolling. So that's probably the biggest change right now. And that and social media. We all learned in life, right? If you read something, you think it's true. And in reality, that is the furthest thing from the truth as we know it now, because anybody can write anything at any given time, and there doesn't have to be a merit of truth to it. So you got to sort through a little bit of that. But I think in recruiting, if you can be honest, you can be sincere, you can put forth your best effort. They can feel the energy through the phone. They can feel a person that's genuine and real, and that goes a long way in the end.
Paul, do we have you now?
Can you see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you. You want to ask?
Well, I'll just talk. I grew up in Champaign many years ago and have moved almost to the Canadian border in northern Michigan the last year. But importantly, I lived in Memphis for 45 years. And I've mentioned several times to friends at the athletic department that in view of the recruiting that our Alumni Association did in Memphis to Illinois back in the 80s and 90s, I really thought that that looking at the better private or better public and private schools, and particularly Tennessee, there were a lot of Illinois qualified students that, and a few of them were good football players, and that it might be an area that when you look at, and I know you're familiar with Memphis because I just saw a transfer from St. George's come in the other day, and he's got our younger brothers, I'm sure you know, at Christian Brothers. But there's, you know, MUS, and before you get to St. George's, and a bunch of really good football schools that are private in Nashville and Chattanooga. And I just wonder if that might be an area that is worth a little harder look.
Yeah, Paul, great question. And yes. I really had never really recruited Memphis. I kind of spotted in there a couple times as an assistant, but when I was at Arkansas, we hit it pretty hard. And then the young man that you're talking about, where you have Chase Hayden coming in here, and he is a grad transfer that I had recruited. He was a phenomenal player that played for me his true freshman year. His dad, Aaron Hayden, played in the NFL for the Packers a long time. But like many of us, right, he's a big, strong, powerful guy, and he met a very pretty young lady, and they had kids, and they're not as big as him. But they created a little running back named Chase that will be joining us. I have heard in the rumors that he does have some younger brothers. They're pretty good, so we'll definitely recruit them. But I was not aware of the local, you know, I mean, again, I'm not great at geography, how close Memphis is. And then actually Tank Wright, who's our head strength coach, if you watch and read his profile, he's actually from Memphis, and he's been harping on the Memphis recruiting since we've been together. So Memphis will definitely be a huge priority for us. It's locally very able to access, and they do have a lot of really good football players in there that someone will have that as a primary area for us in recruiting.
Gus wants to know, what is something that has surprised you since coming to Illinois and joining the Illini family?
Something that surprised me. The only complaint, all right, I got a little cup of coffee here. I love coffee. I love to start my day. My only complaint was champagne. Starbucks doesn't open till 6 a.m. Like it's maddening. Like it's just driving me nuts. All right. Because like I'm a little bit of a coffee snob. I'm not a Dunkin' guy. I hate to say that if there's any Dunkin' fans. I love Starbucks. And so the first day it was like, you know, it was like right at 5:05 or whatever. And I drove by and I just sat at the drive-thru and nothing was happening. And I realized that I better go looking in the window, and I looked and it was all dark in there. I'm like, oh, so next I looked, and onto my phone, it said it opened up at 5:30. I'm like, right on. Okay, I'll sleep in another 10 more minutes, go rolling up the window. The lights are on. I can see someone moving around. I go to the drive-thru, no action. So I pull up to the window, and there's a little girl in there, and I said, hey, can I get that sounds terrible, but I want a vanilla latte with almond milk, extra hot, venti. And she's like, we don't open till 6, sir. I'm like, ah. So if we could have one formal complaint, that would probably be it. But I guess if the only complaint you have is Starbucks not open early enough, I guess that's all right. I would say the only surprise that I've had is a good surprise in the fact that the familiarity that I had with the state. Obviously, it sounds silly. I knew I'm from the state, but when you go to these other jobs, right? So when I went to Iowa, I didn't really know Iowa geography. When I went to Kansas State, didn't know the lay of the land there. I went to the University of Wisconsin. I didn't know if Milwaukee was above, below, east, west of Madison. I didn't know geography. And then I go to Arkansas, same thing. The first day I came into this job, like we're doing the press release, and it mentions, hey, Danville, it mentions Decatur, it mentions, I think Carbondale, it mentioned something. It was just like, boom, boom, boom. Like I know where all these cities are at. And then I get on these Zoom calls with these parents. And we were on a call the other night, and both parents had gone to Illinois State. And I mentioned, oh, hey, did you live in Waterston Towers? And they're like looking at me, freaking out, because Waterston Towers are like the largest, tallest dormitories when they were built back in the day. And my sister lived in it. My sister ran track at Illinois State. So like just the familiarity with the state has probably been the neatest thing for me, is like it automatically identifies me with so many people that I've come across. We had a photo shoot. I know I'm not really a model for the word photo shoot for me is probably kind of an oxymoron, but like it was definitely neat. I was sitting there with the photographer, and she said, my husband is from Aledo, Illinois. And I'm like, oh, the Dragon. I knew right away. We wrestled Aledo in high school. I knew we were green and white, and I knew all about them. So it's just the familiarity that I have with the people I'm talking to is pretty cool.
Chris Cummings wants to know, he said one of his favorite things to do pre-COVID was to bring his young daughters to summer training camp, and wanted to know if you'll be able to be open for fans to come watch during training camp. And do you foresee that happening this fall?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that. But the question would be if we're back to the world that we know as normal, absolutely, we'll definitely have some things that interact with the fans. I have two daughters that it's been a dream of mine to be on the field with them, after a practice with my wife and be able to share a moment that is pretty cool for a father with their daughters. So as much as we can open it up, we will. There'll be times, obviously, we got to be shut down and prepare for our opponent. But I think this, as a head coach, the more visible you can be with your program and the more accessible you can be to the fans, it only rewards everybody. Those young daughters of yours that you hopefully someday, go to school here and wear that block eye on their sweatshirts growing up and everywhere from A to Z afterwards. I think that's only a positive for all of us.
We have a couple people asking about the Chicago area and knowing how many alumni we have that live in those 6 counties up there. And many want to know, how can we engage Chicago? There are quite a few people who have said they are season ticket holders. They're diehard. They wake up at 3:30 in the morning to come down. But how can we help spread that? Winning helps, but what else can we do? What else do you foresee wanting to do with Chicago?
I wanted to answer my phone so bad right there. There was a young man calling that wanted to talk to. Chicago is going to be obviously a huge part of what we do. I actually have hired 2 coaches. I'm not for sure how the recruiting part's going to play out. We're trying to get our full staff here and lay it out. But both Bart Miller and Terrence Jamison are both Chicago area high school products. So I know those guys will be in there. But everybody in the state on my staff, everybody in our entire staff will have a county or an area in Illinois. We'll cover the whole state tip to tip, but Chicago is going to be a premium. All right. And here's the thing about Chicago. I always used to say it was kind of over recruited by other people because, there's a lot of really good players in there, but everybody wants to stop in because it's so accessible and easy to travel. But for us, that can't be the phrase, right? We have to over recruit it. We have to do a great job of finding out when the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, building a relationship with them. And then here I would say this, and Cassie, you've heard me say this a little bit, but if you want to know what you can do, is the thing you can do is be active, right? Like obviously, donations and some financial support help our program. But if you are a social media active person, literally kids make decisions on how many people follow them, like them. It sounds insane. Like it drives me nuts as a 51-year-old adult to talk about how many times someone gets a like on a graphic or a tweet. But it's a part of the world that we live in today. So, if you want to follow and track and help us in recruiting, that's a big deal. Be interactive, obviously don't, say anything negative, because sometimes I think fans can actually go the wrong way after a game, because they look at you as their fans, right? So they want to know how you react and support and benefit our program. So it's just the world we're living in today. If you want to do something that has an immediate impact, you'll see my social timeline. By I'm not a great social media feed line guy, but I'll be pretty active with the rules as we can in recruiting. So I think that's an easy one that everybody can kind of play into.
All right, we're going to take our third in-person question. Jeff, I'm not going to even attempt to say your last name, but go ahead and ask Coach your question.
Yeah, Jeff Crucial here. Welcome to Illinois, Coach. I grew up in 1980s and played out the same time you did in high school. My dream was to play at Illinois, but circumstances led me elsewhere. My question to you is, what does the new strength coach, Tank Wright, bring to the Illinois program? What new and innovative things does he have on tap?
That's great, Jeff. Thanks for the question. So Tank, first off, if you walk in the room, you're going to see someone that just automatically ignites you. a lot of times, young men coming into a program, they've been around strength coaches in high school, but they've never really witnessed or seen what's going to be waiting for them here. We train the whole body, right? So we train the mind, the body, the core flexibility, nutrition. He's hired 4 assistants that I couldn't be more proud of the way we kind of attack that. Like we have one guy that's kind of more of a pure numbers catapult that tracks your body, how many times you break a certain speed barrier, how fast you run, how many steps you take. We have another assistant that's really going to be focused on the nutritional side and recovery. We have another assistant that will really have a lot of work in the basically the finer art of stretching and plyometrics, things to get you a little more flexible as an athlete. And Tank kind of runs it all. And Tank's mind kind of works in a different way. He is a very intense person that is able to relate to our student athletes in a very, very positive way. He's a guy that I think because of his demeanor, he's a Memphis guy that is very proud of what he is. He's been a highly successful. I hired him away. He was actually the defensive line coach at Army. They don't just hire anybody at Army. They hire people of great discipline and back at work ethic and stand for all the right things. So to have him in our program is pretty special. And then what you got to be able to do too in that position is you got to be able to recruit, right? I got to be able to recruit. But when that young man comes in that weight room, he's got to understand immediately the change. And that's what our guys will actually next week when we go in that body composition, they'll take digital body shots of where they are and where they're going to be. And in 8 weeks, it'll be amazing how much difference their bodies will look in that short of time. And, we're not into bodybuilding or, looking a certain way. We're into production and being able to, make guys look a certain way. I think, for us, looking at some of the linemen, if we can trim them up a little bit, get them a little bit leaner in certain areas, develop a little bit more mass in the shoulders and the backs and the legs. Skill players, we got to increase their flexibility and their ability to trigger their lower body to run faster. So every position has a little bit different outlook.
Thanks, Coach. Sounds good.
All right, I think this is a good question. Last time you were head coach, you just had your first baby. So most of your head coaching career, you haven't had to juggle the responsibilities of parenthood. How does that change you since football is 24/7 immersive?
It is. Well, first, I have a great partner. I married an incredible woman. And really early on in our relationship, later in life, and we, got married later. And one of the things that I discovered when we were beginning to date and get a little bit more serious, and we started talking about marriage, was eventually when we had kids, like how this laid out. And she always had kind of made reference, listen, she's very intelligent, smart. She was working in the kind of the real estate world when I first met her, but we both agreed that if this point came when we had children, she'd stay at home and help raise our kids and take that responsibility at its fullest, because knowing that I wasn't going to be around. Listen, I spent the last 3 years in the NFL, or I would, especially this last year because of COVID, on Friday in the NFL, Friday afternoons are kind of family nights, right? So you're done earlier in the day, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I would run out of the building and go to the daycare, and I'd pick up my babies and give them a kiss and play with them all for the rest of the afternoon, late afternoon, feed them, lay them down and go to bed. And because of the COVID world we were in, I would put them to bed Friday night, and then I wouldn't see them for 7 days. I wouldn't see them until the next Friday, because I would leave at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, and I wouldn't come home until after 11 o'clock at night, and you just didn't see them. And it's a part that I just know is part of the job. It's not something I love, and I try to sneak them in as best I can. But when I get them here, we're going to take a little bit of time in transition here. Jen and my wife and I are probably building here in Champaign. So we've got a few lots that we've got sewed up. They'll be joining us hopefully here in March. But believe me, like yesterday, I don't know if anybody saw the social media post of my daughter singing happy birthday. Like, I'm glad I was in my office all by myself, because I was crying like a little schoolgirl. But like, it was really a great reminder of why I'm here. I'm here to build something that we can all enjoy for a long, long time. So it's not going to change what I do. I'm the same guy every day for what it's worth. But my heart probably just pulls a little bit more and makes me a little bit more focused because of what I'm trying to provide those 2 young, beautiful girls in my life.
So I am privy to some of the strategies Josh employed to get you to say yes to this job. And one of the reasons you stood out was your association with 3 stellar coaches that built programs that had sustained winning with Iowa, Wisconsin, and Kansas State. You've worked and knew those coaches very well. What about that process do you feel like you can apply here?
It's a great question. So I grew up right in Illinois and grew up an Illini fan, had an Orange Crush towel on my bedpost for my entire life growing up. And then Mike White had been the head coach here, and there was just some uncertainty. And that's really, truly when I was coming out of high school, and I didn't get offered a scholarship, but I just felt the opportunity to walk on was better at Iowa. And I chose that place and grew up under Hayden Fry. And then after my 3rd year as an assistant coach, Hayden Fry retired. And I didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, this guy named Kirk Ferentz came in. He retained me. I stayed for 3 years with him. Saw him. One of the things that I didn't realize at the time, the time I spent with him really showed me how you could rebuild a program that had been very successful. And then I went to Kansas State with Bill Snyder, who had built Kansas State up from nothing and put it into a spotlight like no other in the Big 12. And then I went to the University of Wisconsin, went to work for Barry Alvarez, who then saw things in me that he believed, and he offered me the head coaching job after 1 year. And I stayed there and obviously had great success. And then went to Arkansas really with the idea to try and do that again. But it's a different league. It's a different way of doing things down there that really I wasn't able to captivate at the highest level that I would like to have. And when that transition made, I really took the last couple of years to how can I take advantage of the next opportunity. And what I realized was exactly like you had mentioned, I'd been part of 3 programs that had been able to sustain success. And really the common factors were 3. They were all built within, right? So Iowa had a lot of Iowa players that were the meat and potatoes of what they are. Same thing in Kansas, same thing in Wisconsin. The head coach, right, had a vision that was very direct and made the people of that area very, very proud. So Hayden Fry, even though he's from Texas, he made the people of Iowa proud with the way that they performed and what they displayed. Bill Snyder, the same at Kansas, and Coach Alvarez, same at Wisconsin. And the third thing was getting the right people in the building. You know, you got to get the right players, you got to get the right assistant coaches, you got the right group of people that surround you and your support staff. So really that's what I kind of laid out in the formula. And so here to come to Illinois, obviously you saw from day one, right? If you're in the state here and you can play at championship level, we need to keep you. For me as a head coach, I want to have us represent you. I want to have us represent you in a way that you can be proud of the way we handle our business on or off the field. And we should reflect who you are as Illini fans and alumni and supporters. And the third thing is I have to get the right people in the building, right? So that might take a few years to transition through, but I have to bring the right people, players, coaches, support staff that fit that model, all right, and believe in the I, all right, and what it means to be here. So it's a work in progress, but I think something that can be easily done.
There are quite a few questions about winning timeline, how quickly we think we can start winning. I think this is a good way to put it. Jim says when Coach Underwood arrived, he faced a similar situation to what you're facing. It's taken him 2 to 3 years to turn the program around, bring the top players from the state of Illinois. What would you project as time you need to make a similar change?
Yeah, first off, Coach Underwood has been unbelievable. He literally reached out to me during the initial phase that week before I even took the job and offered up anything he could do to help with me make a decision and basically start the process up with him as a head basketball coach and me, the head football coach, and what we can do together. So since that point to where we are today, have had some great conversations with him, but he is even the one that pointed out to me, he had to transition basically a 15-man roster. I'm looking at a 110-man roster. So the numbers are a little bit different, but the concept is the same. And, I go back to, you learn different things of the past. It's not about getting the right people on the bus. It's getting the wrong people off the bus. And I think for us, we have to understand where we're at. I'm going to love up and accept everyone, but if they aren't going to do it in a way that, gets us on the path that I know we need to be on, then transition is going to happen. And that unfortunately started right when I came in and interviewed the staff. I've had a couple guys hold over that I feel can help us get to where we want to be, but I'd have to transition on our own staff. So it's already started. I don't know if there's an ending date. I think it's something that's going to be constantly evolving, but it's definitely one that's on my timeline every day.
All right, back to recruiting a little bit. First of all, we've got someone called Anonymous who wants to know how a transfer could get in touch with you about potentially walking on. So not sure if you've got a person that's taken all those requests.
Yeah, we got a, if you go to our webpage, but also if you DM me or anything like that, I go through that. Someone always is looking at every opportunity of you can DM one of my coaches, you can reach out to someone is going to be going through and getting where they need to be.
So second question about that is the transfer portal. The transfer portal has really picked up in the 2 years you were in the NFL. What do you think about it? How do you plan to use it? And are there any good, I don't think you could say names on this call, but are there any really good guys that you think we can pull from this year?
Yeah, so that probably has been the biggest game changer in college football has been the transfer portal. So what has really benefited us and me is I went in the NFL and in the NFL, you have basically college scouting or college personnel and then NFL personnel. So you have a group of people that are structured and focused strictly on the incoming talent from the college game into the NFL. And then you have another group of personnel that is working on NFL rosters. Currently, if you're, like when I was at the Pats, that's 31 other teams where we're constantly evaluating the personnel at other teams. So when they become available, we have the ability to decide if we want them on our roster. So what I've done here now, we're beginning to implement this phase here is, which is really kind of how some of the other programs, some of the programs I've been able to visit over the last couple of years in the NFL have taken the model that now there are also two levels of personnel here in college football. The first being the traditional high school evaluations where you're looking at a high school player, evaluating them, understanding who they are, what they are developing, and getting to signing day. But then there's also the college personnel department that monitors the transfer portal as well as grad transfers. And that's a pretty big number. You got to find out, A, if they're academically in a position to get eligible to be here at Illinois. B, can they play at the level we want them to, and are they a right fit at the right position at the right time? So there's a lot of moving parts. The transfer portal is large, wide. What's the scary part is there's more players in the portal that have it than are physically able to have a scholarship in Division I football. It's really kind of unfortunately a very scary thing, and there's just going to be players that don't have a scholarship at the end of the day, and that's what we're beginning to see now. Some of these kids jump out. And when you enter the transfer portal, for instance, if someone enters the transfer portal for us here at the University of Illinois, that automatically gives me the ability to cancel their aid. And it's a slippery slope they go down. And unfortunately, the live and real consequences is they give up a scholarship if they enter that transfer portal and they don't get the answer they want. They potentially could be without a scholarship. And I never want to see that because you can change the path and direction of a young man's life forever in that moment, but unfortunately, that's what the rules have provided us.
We got a question about how you put together an offense and defense for Illinois. You've got, is it more your vision with the coordinators? Or, you said earlier, Ryan's not going to come in and just run Missouri's. But how does that work? Because I did see Coach Henry walking in the building today with about 5 boxes of playbooks. So everybody's got ideas. Everybody's got things that they felt worked at previous places. How does that form? How does that come together?
That's a great question. So first off, I've been a head coach, for 12 years. I've been a defense coordinator for a number of years. Been in different, college football for 25 years, 3 years in the NFL. I don't want to come in and just run those systems. I want to do what's best for us at Illinois. So I hired 2 coordinators in particular. My special teams coordinator will be a little bit of a work in progress between a couple guys I've hired, but offensively, Tony Peterson, I've known him to be an offensive coordinator at several different schools, and I've asked him to just come in. We're going to blend with him 5 coaches that he's never, 4 other coaches he's never worked with to make the Illinois system. Now, they all carry common traits. There are guys that I either have been around or I knew a lot about, and they're going to combine to make the Illinois system. But we're going to take 2 or 3 weeks here to watch our guys in individual workouts to see what their skill sets are and what they can do. It doesn't do us any good to run a system of a bunch of players that can't run it. All right. So I think ideally here at the University of Illinois in particular, you have to have a system that plays to your players' strengths. If you have a system that doesn't play to their strengths or exposes their weaknesses, you're not going to have success. Same thing on defense. Like I said, with Ryan, he's coming in. There's a couple of former players of mine, guys that I've worked with, but also he has the ability to create and mold his defensive playbook to what we have here. So it's a little bit of a work in progress, but I would say the part that's been fun is that we're all kind of joining these ideas together and then hopefully come up with the best product we can for the fall.
Quarterback wise, what do you envision quarterback looking like? In the pocket guy, a running guy combo? What do you think?
You know, we want a guy that can manage and understand the game. If he can make some special plays happen with his ability to, you know, make the best of a bad situation. But you want that quarterback to be the leader. He's definitely got to be the voice. He's got to be the guy that they all look to. You know, we have a couple of good candidates here on campus, obviously already. We'll recruit some new ones in and basically put the best guy in a position to have success. But it all starts with, you know, understanding what our offense is and coaches being able to identify who can run it the best.
All right, I'm going to ask you one last football question and then a couple fun ones to end on tonight. You went to the NFL right after college, but you clearly wanted to get back. What is it about the college game versus the pro game that meant you wanted to return?
Without a doubt, working with young people. You know, I got two beautiful daughters, and I think the good Lord gave me those two because I'm never going to have a son. And my wife, I kept, you know, trying to talk her into maybe having that third one on the back end, have a little child protector, a little man on the back end. But I think it's because that, you know, I work with people that enjoy working with young men. And it's not just seeing them have success in your time with them as a player, but also beyond that in life. I remember I got on a phone call on New Year's Day just a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, almost 2 weeks ago. And it was 3 or 4 of my former players who never really played in the NFL. One was on the East Coast, one's in Chicago, one was downstate. And to just talk to them for 10 to 15 minutes about where they are in life and what they're doing, like truly is why I get into it. And they made reference to the things we learned on the football field and in the classroom when we were working together to build a championship and how they apply that to their everyday life. You know, I see young men that have gone out and now are successful fathers, husbands, people that give back to their community. It's just one of those neat things about our job. And I love my time in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. I have a Super Bowl ring. I have a Lombardi trophy that's going to sit in my office that Coach Belichick gave me after a Super Bowl. And I love my time in the NFL, but it's a different world out there. It's a business world. It's approached a little bit different. The rosters are a little bit different. But in college football, you get to develop young people, and that's what I love to do.
All right. So you knew this was coming at some point. When are you getting an Illinois tattoo?
I've actually thought about that a little bit, but if I got one, I'd have to explain it to my daughters, and I sure don't want them getting one. I know it's probably silly to think about, and they're ages of 3 and 1.5, but I do think about down the road. So, you know, I never say never. I got one on it was a great idea. When I was 18 at the University of Iowa, I didn't really envision myself being the head coach at Illinois. It was funny yesterday. My mom is an amazing woman. And yesterday I got a text on my birthday that said, hey, if you would have told me 51 years ago today, while we were laying there with chickenpox in the hospital, I would have ever thought that you were going to become the head coach at the University of Illinois. We were at Illini Hospital in Silvis, Illinois. We both had chickenpox. We were in a separate wing of the hotel. And now to come full circle and understand what it means, you never have to look back further than life itself to never say never. So I don't know if I'm going to get a tattoo. I think my mom, she got mad at me on the first one. So even though I'm 51 years old, I think she'd still probably give me an earful.
So you were born with chickenpox?
I was born with chickenpox. I came out fighting.
Great.
My mom and I both.
Question.
It was a little unusual. I don't remember it, obviously, but I guess I didn't scratch. So all good.
All right. Any hobbies outside of football and your love for coffee?
Hobbies, no more. I used to, before I was married, used to golf a little bit. The wifey doesn't like that time away, so I kind of given up on golf. I do like, my wife and I love music. We love people. So I like to go to concerts. I'm a huge, kind of grew into a country western fan here down the end. But love really any type of music and really what I probably learned later in life is I love seeing and being part of things that I wouldn't normally have done. I think the more you grow as a person when you get outside your comfort zone. So I really got into plays. I really got into musicals. I really got into different things, different shows as I've gotten older in life. Things that make my mind change and go in a direction that's different from football. Like, because I breathe this so much, like anything that I can do that takes my moment away from it. I think my wife would be the first to tell you that anything that gets me away from my phone, anything that gets me away from my, thinking about, I keep a white pad, a yellow pad by my bed in case I think of a call or a play, either right before I'm going to bed or when I wake up. And I think the more she can get me away from that world, the more she enjoys it.
Well, thanks, Coach. So we are coming to the end of our time. A lot of people have asked, and I think you've said little bits of this, that how can they help? And you talked about giving. I think what's most important is we've got a lot of people that are willing to help. And I think sorry, I've been trying to mute me because the dog's been barking the whole time. Whatever they can do, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that they're able, do it and be supportive in any way you can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's, financial support, there's being in the crowd, being in the stands, giving support, but in this world we live in, I see there's 237 participants on this phone, like if you can social media direct and influence a young man and follow him and, hey, great job today, whatever it is, it all has a cumulative effect. So I think that's an easy one that can be done by everyone.
We had people ask about Chicago. Kathleen Knight is on this call. Kathleen is our fundraiser and development officer in the Chicago area. She's working hard to kind of galvanize all of our alumni up there, as well as the Alumni Association. So reach out to her if you're in that area. Coach, thank you so much for coming on. We did not get to nearly only maybe a quarter, not even a quarter of all the questions. Hush. That we had. And so hopefully we can do another one of these sometime, but we try to cover almost all the categories, at least, that people were curious about. You got a couple more coaches to fill out. And then it'll be spring ball and winter workouts before you know it.
It will be. Thanks very much for having me on ILL.
I. Thanks, everybody.